The training location for revolver shooting was arranged in the courtyard of the castle. Including Sylvie, all the witches selected for the reconnaissance team were given a revolver. After spending 2 days familiarizing everyone with the proper shooting stance, Roland proceeded to the live ammunition shooting phase of the training. The witches performed decently during the gun handling exercises, but the shooting exercise didn't go as expected. Especially when the deafening sound of gunfire echoed and the recoil, everyone's first instinct was to cover their ears, leaving Roland with a vacant expression. He then shifted his gaze towards Anna. There, she held the gun in both hands without moving a muscle, continuously pushing the trigger, completely disregarding the recoil and gunpowder smoke. Setting aside accuracy for a moment, just this action alone was executed perfectly. Roland was secretly amazed. Even though it was a large-caliber revolver, which had a strong recoil, how could her arms remain motionless during continuous shooting? Curiosity drove him to approach her from behind, and he saw that 2 clusters of black flames were tightly adhering to the grip, firmly holding it in the air, while Anna merely made a gesture of grasping, not even touching the handgun. Roland could only laugh wryly and loudly declare, "No one is allowed to use their abilities to assist in practice. If they were to encounter enemies with God's punishment stones, they will be in a frenzy." Seeing a group of witches enthusiastically manipulating their weapons, Roland couldn't help but feel deeply moved. Until now, he still remembered the appearance of each witch when he first met them. Anna used to be as thin as a bamboo pole, with lifeless eyes and a perpetually expressionless face. Nightingale always had a trace of gloom between her eyebrows, and her smile had nothing to do with her emotions. It was, in fact, a mask to conceal her own feelings, always wearing a mischievous smile on her lips. And Wendy, who couldn't hide her fatigue behind her gentle voice. Lily, who had accepted her fate and confusion when she threw herself into the future like a solitary leaf, always on guard like a cat. Surviving after oppression, betrayal, and pursuit was a stroke of luck. There was no time to think about where they were heading. But now, they were completely different from the past. The witches exuded a unique charm, their eyes sparkling with vitality. The future was no longer uncertain for them. Besides simply staying alive, they now had the strength to pursue other things, beautiful things that were just as precious as life itself. In the afternoon, it was time for the specially designed high-altitude throwing exercise. The number of witches participating in the drill was reduced by more than half, leaving only Anna, Wendy, and Lightning. In order to fulfill his promise, Roland planned to drop a 250-kilogram bomb directly above the Grey Castle Royal Palace. As the altitude increased, the border town quickly shrank to the size of a fingernail, and the Crimson Water River turned into a gleaming silver ribbon. However, the drop distance of over 1,000 meters meant that hitting the target will be unlikely. To achieve precise targeting, the bomb had to be equipped with a guidance system. And the young girl, Lightning, would be responsible for this task. "Drop the bomb," Roland ordered. Wendy pulled the valve and released the bomb. Anna sealed the release hole with the prepared cover plate and tightened the fixing bracket. These procedures had been practiced repeatedly on land, and the two of them worked together seamlessly. During the descent of the bomb, Lightning fell at the same speed and applied horizontal thrust to it, allowing the bomb to freely change its trajectory, transforming it into a guided missile. When it was close to the target, Lightning pulled the rear mechanism, separating the deceleration parachute from the bomb. The bomb would gain sufficient kinetic energy in the final few hundred meters and penetrate through the roof of the palace. In this way, the substantial drop distance became a guarantee for precise control of the impact point. The remaining task was to continue practicing this process. A week quickly passed, and Roland called Barav, Carter, and Axe to the castle to inform them that he would be leaving the town for 2 days. He instructed them to continue implementing the town's affairs according to the usual plans. However, his words were met with unanimous opposition from the three. Carter hoped to fulfill his duty as the chief knight and guard the prince. Axe requested to form a 100-person squad for protection. Barav argued that according to the municipal government's decree, any order must be reviewed and stamped by the Lord before it could take effect, urging Roland to stay in the castle. Finally, Roland demanded that everyone follow his command. Barav still didn't understand why Roland had to personally take action. After a moment of silence, Roland spoke up, mentioning that it might be about the survival of the Western Territory or even the entire kingdom. When the three asked for specific reasons, Roland shook his head. He reiterated that this trip was a confidential operation and they were not to disclose the information to anyone. In his mind, Roland considered that the headquarters of the demons might be stationed over 200 kilometers away from the Western Territory, and these demons had once destroyed the holy city of Takira. Revealing such information would be too shocking. As a person who had seen countless doomsday movies, Roland isn't too shocked, but for them, accepting such a reality would be difficult. If the news were to leak, it would cause even more trouble. If it triggered panic among the people, it could lead to a mass exodus from the Western Territory. Therefore, it was not the appropriate time to announce. After attending to the municipal matters, Roland and the witches boarded a hot air balloon and ascended from the castle courtyard, flying towards the direction of the mountains. Since learning about the existence of demons, Sylvie had been burdened with heavy thoughts. She wanted to know if the church, which had fought against the demons 400 years ago, was truly good or bad. Before Roland could speak, Nightingale preemptively responded, stating that the church was definitely bad. Kind-hearted people wouldn't arbitrarily hunt down witches. However, Sylvie continued to stare directly at Roland, as if wanting to hear his answer. Roland contemplated for a moment and said that it was still uncertain whether the church was truly fighting against the demons. If they had made such significant sacrifices, why would they conceal the information and destroy all past records? Spreading this matter widely would be the best way to expand their followers. They still didn't have a complete understanding of many pieces of information, and the distinction between good and bad wasn't so simple. Roland was well aware that Sylvie was actually asking whether he would stand with the church in order to fight against the demons. Sylvie opened her mouth, but didn't deny anything. Roland spoke seriously, stating that the authority of the church and the monarchy were inherently incompatible. Even without the witches, he would not stand on the side of the church. Moreover, now he had everyone by his side. Nightingale smiled proudly. The other witches also expressed their trust in Roland, saying that he was reliable. Sylvie nodded gently, and the heaviness between her eyebrows seemed to fade slightly. And so, as dusk descended, the group could vaguely see the outline of the snow-capped mountains. They selected a camping site on a mountain ridge closer to the sea, allowing them to easily observe their surroundings. It was also far away from the forest, ensuring that wild beasts couldn't easily approach the camp. Everyone began setting up their tents, but due to the limited payload capacity of the hot air balloon, they could only bring one large tent. Therefore, Roland displayed a gentleman's spirit and let the witches sleep in the tent while he slept in the basket. Although Wendy and Soraya suggested that they should go to the basket and let Prince Roland sleep in the tent, he refused each one of them. Only Sylvie kept looking at Roland with a vigilant gaze which left him feeling both amused and exasperated. After assigning the night watch, everyone entered the tent. It was at this moment that faint footsteps could be heard from behind. Roland turned around and found that the person approaching was none other than Anna. Anna approached to accompany Roland. She mentioned that although Sylvie didn't express her gratitude, her mood had become much lighter. Anna herself was also pleased with her own choice. She kissed Roland on the cheek and then went back to sleep. Watching her return to the tent, Roland stretched contentedly and yawned. He intended to go back to the basket to sleep. However, as he was about to do so, an invisible pair of hands cupped his face. There was nothing in front of him, yet he could feel the soft touch on his face once again, but this time, it was from the other side. In the early morning hours, everyone packed up their camping gear and set off once again. Roland also noticed a detail: even when sleeping in the wilderness, the witches' appearances remained flawless, while he clearly couldn't achieve the same. Without looking in a mirror, he could guess that his hair was definitely a mess, and in the eyes of everyone, he probably looked disheveled. After half an hour, following Lightning's instructions, they arrived at the designated location. As Lightning had described, a red mist shrouded the area behind the mountains. The mist pressed down heavily, and the closer they got to the ground, the more intense the red it became. Sylvie couldn't see much due to the distance. As the hot air balloon slowly approached the ground, Sylvie finally began to report what she saw. About 10 miles from the seaside, she had discovered a collection of buildings made of black stones, forming a triangular shape resembling spires. Most of the spires were empty, but some appeared to be filled with liquid. Sylvie froze for a moment. She saw hundreds of pairs of eyes suddenly opened. Sylvie shouted, "The demons have spotted us!" Upon hearing this, Roland gave the order Windy, retreat at full speed. Strong winds quickly blew, and the sudden movement of the hot air balloon caused the basket to tilt. However, Sylvie's warning chilled everyone's hearts. 2 demons were flying towards them on their mounts. These creatures could fly, and it didn't take long for Roland to spot 2 black dots in his field of vision. Looking through his telescope, he saw the mounts beneath them with their sharp-toothed beaks, hairless bodies that bore no resemblance to birds. If he wasn't mistaken, these were 2 hybrid demonic beasts. Roland realized his carelessness. He hadn't expected the demons to have flying mounts, and the situation with Lightning was dire. She wouldn't be able to engage in combat like this. If they were shot down from this height, they would undoubtedly meet their demise. The demons were getting closer to the hot air balloon, and Roland could already see the 2 demons approaching. One demon raised its spear. Just as Sylvie issued a warning, Anna had already extended her hands, controlling the black flames to unfold into a thin curtain, shielding the basket. She successfully blocked the incoming attack. The previous block had consumed a considerable amount of her magic. The 2 demons surrounded the hot air balloon from the left and right, and Anna alone defended against one of them. The other witches immediately picked up their pistols and started counterattacking. The witches quickly drew their pistols and retaliated. However, with the basket constantly swaying, it was nearly impossible to hit a fast-moving enemy. After 2 rounds of bullets, none hit their targets. At that moment, the arms of the demons raised once again, and this time they chose to attack from both sides. Anna didn't even have time to observe the enemy behind her when she summoned a thin layer of black flames to shield the basket. She could only cover one side, and Roland clearly saw the demon swing its right arm towards Anna, but he couldn't see the trajectory of the spear. Almost instinctively, he pushed Anna away, who was facing away from him. Then his shoulder felt as if it had been struck by a heavy hammer, and he was sent flying backward, colliding with the basket wall. An unbearable pain seemed to tear him apart, followed by a strong dizziness, as if his consciousness was slipping away. Nightingale's heart-wrenching cry was the last sound he heard before losing consciousness. Witnessing Roland being hit, Nightingale felt her chest tighten suddenly. She feared that he would never wake up again. Just the thought of it made it difficult for Nightingale to breathe. She had never felt so helpless before. But it was Anna who first reacted. She crouched down, covering the entire wound with a mass of black flames. Under the flames, white smoke billowed, accompanied by a sizzling sound. When the black flames dissipated, Roland's severed arm was charred black. The trickling blood had stopped. It was an emergency measure Roland had taught everyone in first aid classes. They learned to secure the wound, then quickly go to the medical center and find Manhwa. They had to get back as soon as possible. Nightingale turned her head slowly towards the southeast, where the town located. She urgently shouted to let Lightning protect the balloon's descent. Although the girl's face was pale, she nodded, casting a glance at the unconscious Roland, and then flew out of the basket. The other demon was still attacking the hot air balloon. Nightingale took a deep breath, forcing herself to temporarily set aside the image of Prince Roland being injured. Now only she could fight the demons. Nightingale saw the best opportunity. Without hesitation, she stepped forward and, taking advantage of the hot air balloon, positioned herself directly on top. The demon was charging straight at them at that moment. Nightingale was surprised to discover that there was a vortex of magic energy slowly rotating within the demon's body, and a shining stone embedded in its arm. Just as the demon was about to collide with the hot air balloon, Nightingale leaped out of the mist and appeared behind the demon. The monstrous winged demonic beast suddenly sank under the increased weight on its back. The demon seemed to realize something and abruptly turned around. But it was greeted by the thunderous roar of a 12mm caliber revolver. The bullet tore through the shroud of flames and smoke and blasted a fist-sized hole in the demon's head. Sticky blood splattered everywhere, and a pungent smell of blood filled the air. The enemies convulsed and fell to the ground, while the demonic beast changed its direction, gliding past the hot air balloon from the side. Just as Nightingale was about to turn back towards the top of the balloon, an unexpected incident occurred. The tilting corpse pulled on the reins, causing the mount to suddenly roll to the side, throwing her off. Before she could react, she had already been thrown beyond a safe distance to return on her own. She heard her sisters shouting in panic, but it was all in vain. Lightning was engaged in a battle with the demons, and even if Maisie transformed into an eagle, she couldn't lift herself up. Nightingale was well aware of the imminent outcome she was about to face. Wendy struggled to control the wind direction but was powerless to stop it. Nightingale closed her eyes, and the scene of her encounter with Roland replayed in her mind. She sat on the edge of the bed, toying with the dagger in her hand, waiting for the prince to enter through the door. Everything started to fade away, leaving only the smiling face of the prince. Nightingale had only one regret, perhaps, was that she couldn't accompany him until the end. Suddenly, a series of high-pitched chirps reached her ears. Nightingale opened her eyes and saw a white figure diving straight towards her, landing on her chest. It was Maisie. She was about to say something when a dazzling white light burst forth from the bird's body. Its form instantly expanded, revealing enormous and formidable flesh wings unfurling from its back. Feathers scattered, and the bird's head transformed into a terrifying and fearsome visage, resembling a flying demonic beast. Maisie let out a deafening roar as her claws grabbed Nightingale and threw her upwards. When Maisie carried Nightingale into the battle, the situation instantly reversed. The demons let out an angry roar and was forced to abandon the pursuit of lightning. Instead, it fiercely hurled a spear towards Maisie. Nightingale tapped Maisie twice, and Maisie's body rapidly shrank, transforming back into a bird. The spear whistled past them, plunging into the sea. In the next instant, Nightingale emerged from the mist and returned to Maisie's back, seamlessly evading the attack. Just as they were about to collide, Maisie suddenly descended, brushing past the enemy's shoulder. Once she regained her balance, Nightingale had disappeared from Maisie's back. She reappeared behind the demons like a phantom. With anger in her eyes, she pulled the trigger, and the gunshots resounded continuously. The demon fell into the ocean. The demonic beast, now without its master, was also struck down by lightning with her pistol, falling into the sea and quickly disappearing. A hot air balloon descended slowly. Everyone anxiously looked at Roland. Wendy mentioned that they had been delayed for so long, and the hot air balloon would take a while to reach the town. They now had to proceed with Lightning and Maisie leading the way for His Highness. Maisie's enormous head opened its jaws wide, reassuring everyone that she was fine. Lightning seemed a bit downcast, probably feeling that as an adventurer, she was afraid of fighting the enemy, which led them all into this predicament. She quietly said she was fine as well. Before setting off, Nightingale gently patted her head, telling her that it wasn't her fault. The witches had bound the unconscious prince to Maisie's back, while Lightning carried the severed hand. The two quickly took off, soaring along the Crimson Water River towards the town. The other witches realized that they needed to leave as soon as possible. The hot air balloon ascended once again, and now only 5 people remained. Soraya was puzzled, wondering why the hot air balloon was spotted, while having sky camouflage and should be difficult to distinguish at a height of 2 kilometers. Sylvie furrowed her brow and explained that there was a gigantic demon with a head even larger than its body, covered in countless eyes. Anna recalled the strangeness of the 2 flying mounts. Their blood was a deep blue color instead of the dark black color from the typical hybrid demonic beasts. Wendy exclaimed how fortunate it was that Maisie could transform into their likeness. If it wasn't for her saving Nightingale, they would all have been in danger. Nightingale, who had been silent all along, suddenly spoke up. She revealed that Maisie's abilities had evolved. The magical energy within her was no longer a swirling vortex but had transformed into a fixed form, a pair of unfurled white wings, expanding gracefully. Lightning held onto the arm of His Highness, feeling overwhelming guilt. The demons may have had a fearsome appearance, but it wasn't overwhelmingly powerful in the air. If she had left the hot air balloon from the beginning to intercept the enemy, His Highness wouldn't have suffered such severe injuries. It was at that moment that Lightning realized how far she still was from being an outstanding adventurer. His Highness's breathing grew weaker, and his body grew colder. They had to move at full speed. By the time they reached the border town, Lightning felt dizzy and disoriented. The excessive speed not only drained her magical energy rapidly but also put a tremendous strain on her body. She gritted her teeth and, using her last ounce of strength, landed directly in front of the castle's courtyard. She shouted towards Carter, who had rushed over with a gun upon hearing the commotion, quickly summoned Miss Manhua. "The prince is injured.